Peyton Anderson was the most profound influence in my life. I started to work on the Macon Telegraph at age 14. I needed a job, and the only jobs available then were either to sack groceries or to work as a sports stringer at the Macon Telegraph. I fell in love with those who were the writers, the reporters, the photographers, the editors, and they took a special interest in me. It was something that almost ignited at the earliest part of my life this lifetime passion for journalism. As I worked through the 9th grade and the 10th grade and the 11th grade and then into my senior year at Lanier High for boys, the then editors of the paper, an editor named Bill Ott, a managing editor named Jim Chapman, and a sports editor whose name was, originally it was Sam Glassman, who was succeeded by Harley Bowers. They brought me to the attention of the publisher. They brought me to the attention of Peyton Anderson. I had seen Mr. Anderson coming in and out of the newspaper. I had never met him. Certainly he was well known because he really loved his employees. He loved his staff. He spoke to everybody. He cared about everybody in their family. But in any case, as a senior at Lanier High, I was basically thinking about my future. I did not have the funds to go to college, but I didn't really tell anybody that. I mean, it was a very private matter for me. However, the then editor, Bill Ott, took me over one afternoon to meet Peyton. And I'll never forget his words. He said, Tommy, if you can get into college, we will, meaning we, the paper, will pay your way, provided that you will continue to work on weekends. So I applied to University of Georgia School of Journalism, was accepted, and had 4 wonderful years in Athens. And so Friday afternoon, rather than staying around at the Sigma Nu house or in other places of pleasure, I headed to Macon to work. And it was not work, it was fun. I enjoyed it so much. So that was the way I first met Peyton Anderson. And it was like meeting one of the greats of Macon, which he was then and was throughout his lifetime. It was really interesting because I would occasionally write him a letter, just like a progress letter, or a letter of gratitude, thanking him for the support he had given me, and also, in a way, just keeping him posted about my life. I wanted him to know that I was fulfilling, I think, whatever expectations he had of me. I was able to become editor of the campus paper, the Red and Black. I was able to become a commander of the Army ROTC unit. I was able to become the president of my fraternity. And I wanted him to be proud of his investment in me. Now, it was a modest investment. It was for tuition and books, and then I received pay for my weekends in Macon. But over time, we were becoming closer and closer. By my senior year, I had, at the University of Georgia, I had applied for and won a scholarship to attend Chapel Hill, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, for a master's in journalism. And I asked for an appointment with Peyton and went over to see him. And I said, Peyton, I think you'll be so proud to learn that I've been chosen for this scholarship, and I look forward to doing it. And Peyton said, he just sort of stopped me, and he said, Tommy, what is it you really want to do with your life? And I said, well, Mr. Anderson, one day I'd love to be a publisher just like you. And he looked at me and he said, in that case, you do not need a master's degree in journalism. You've learned all the journalism here from the 9th grade forward every summer, weekends. What you need is a business degree. And his words were exactly these. If you can get into the Harvard Business School, I will pay your way. Now, getting into the Harvard Business School is not easy. And then the idea that he would pay my way through Harvard Business School was really even more astounding. but I applied late. I actually applied in June for admission. And thanks to a letter from Peyton and from Bill Ott and Jim Chapman, they did pay my way through 2 years of Harvard Business School. And I continued to come to Macon during the summers to work. And so our relationship deepened, but it was mostly through these letters, Peyton's little handwritten letters or my typed letters to him. And I think at some point he really saw in me a person who perhaps one day could become the publisher of a newspaper. But it just had this sense of here is a person who believes in me, who is my champion, who is my mentor. And although his was more on the sort of the general side of business, circulation department, advertising department, press rooms, all of that, where I had been primarily on the news side, but he put me through the business side, including selling newspapers door to door, collecting door to door, and more than anything, getting up around 2 a.m., going down in a little white Chevy van to pick up papers, go out to a substation in Unionville, where every morning I was to meet my maybe 30 young carriers, and every time there was at least 1 or 2 or 3 who did not show up. So still in the darkness, I would take their route book. I had a copy of the route book and try to throw their routes for them. And often I would get it on the porch. Often I would get it in the yard. Sometimes, though, I would get it in the bushes and would have to get out and try to find it and put it back. But anyway, he taught me the importance of selling the subscription or whatever the product may be, servicing it, making sure you delivered whatever the product might be, and then collecting for it, sales. And that was something they didn't teach me at Harvard Business School, but it really was something that had been very helpful to me as I did, in fact, become publisher of 2 American newspapers in Dallas and in Los Angeles later on. While in my second year at Harvard Business School, my wife, Edwina Chastain, saw a small item in the New York Times, and it was the creation of a White House Fellows Program that President Johnson was initiating to bring 15 young women and men to Washington for a year to give them exposure at the highest levels to the workings of government so that hopefully they'd go back to their own profession, in my case, journalism, in the case of others, medicine or law or business. And in any case, I did apply, and God only knows how, but I was accepted. I think during my time at the White House, with the invitations that he received and the times that he was able to come when I was there, it really deepened the relationship. And I also think that President Johnson felt a little guilt himself because I never would have stayed at the White House except with the explicit approval of Peyton. I mean, with the explicit approval of Peyton that I could stay. And there's an exchange of letters between the President of the United States and Peyton just about that. And it had one line in it, I think the President exaggerated. He said, the nation needs Tom Johnson. Can you spare him? And of course, Peyton said, how else could I answer that? I think it was who Peyton was as a person. I think he cared about young people. He especially cared about young people of accomplishment. He really admired those young people who would work hard. He admired those that would go out and really do well. And those were the type of people, I call them the workhorses, rather than the show horses. He admired those that were willing to do the work, and he wanted to make sure that they were rewarded. And he saw promise in me. His investment in me not only went all the way to the White House, it went all the way to all of the positions that I have held. And I think about how was I chosen to become, say, the leader of the Texas Broadcasting Corporation in Austin, or the publisher and editor of the Dallas Times Herald, or the publisher and earlier president of the Los Angeles Times, and then finally to become the chief executive officer of CNN. I think having both the journalism credentials, the news credentials, but in addition to that, I had the business credentials. that Harvard MBA and the business training that I had received, and I'm convinced that Peyton helped to shape all of the achievements that I've had in my life. He played a powerful role, and particularly that early belief in me, that confidence in me. But I think he really had sort of felt a great sense of pride in being able to help as he did in my own life. And I know this, I would have never made it as far as I did except for Peyton Anderson. I mean, that is a complete fact. I would never have made it so far. And thank God he came along. And I am so grateful that I had him as my champion, as my mentor, as my friend, and how lucky I was